everybody on this very, very first day of the new year. So, very happy new year to you all. I hope it's going to be a very, very good year for each one of you. I pray God's richest blessings upon each one. That your walk with the Lord may be grow from strength to strength in this year. And yeah, all the best. Hope it's going to be, like I said, a good one. Henry, nice to see you. Lekker om jou te sien hier. Baie welkom by ons. Dit is altyd so lekker om julle by ons te hê. Henry has kindly agreed to lead the singing for us this morning. So we're going to have some good singing, and then with the backup choir that you've got, it's going to be simply amazing. So thank you for that. A couple of quick announcements that we can run through. No birthdays, no anniversaries coming up. Oh, okay. Those are my announcements. Are there any other announcements? Very quick. Very easy. Okay. If there are no other announcements, oh yes, Henk and Elke sent me a message. They arrived safely back in Johannesburg, so they say thank you for the prayers. Goeiemorgen. So it was thank you for those prayers and for Adrian and Gabby traveling to PE and back again. So yeah. Alright, if there are no other announcements, let's open with a word of prayer this morning. Our Lord and Heavenly Father, we are truly blessed and grateful to be able to assemble before your throne of grace and mercy again this morning. Father, as we look back at the year that has gone past, through the many trials and the tribulations and the hard times that we had in the year that has gone past, Lord, we're still able to see your hand in all of these things. Father, we saw your hand guiding us through the difficult times, carrying us through the difficult times, Father. Always being there with us, always being there to strengthen us, Father. Always being there to guide us and to lead us. And then, Father, as we stand at the dawn of a new year this morning, we ask the same thing again of you, Father, that you carry us through the difficult times, that you strengthen us, Father, that you guide us, that you lead us, Father, that our walk with you through this year that lies before us grows ever closer and ever nearer, Father. Thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed on us in the year that has gone past. And Father, as always, we look forward to the many blessings and the good things that you will bestow on us as your children in this new year. Lord, it is always good to see our family gathered together here this morning. It is a blessing to have our sister congregation worshipping with us this morning. Lord, it is always a blessing to see each and every one of them, Father, all of their smiling faces, their happy moods, Father, their joyful greetings. And so, Father, we ask a special blessing upon each one of them. We ask a blessing upon each one that is present here this morning, Father, that have taken the time again to be here with you, to take time out of their schedule and out of their day to worship you, Father, for all the good things that you have done on man's behalf. And then, Father, as we go into this worship this morning, we ask that you will guide us in everything that you will do, that everything that is said and done this morning may be acceptable in your sight, and that it may come before your throne of grace and mercy this morning as a fragrant offering. And this is our prayer with thanksgiving and in Jesus' name.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. As always, it is an honor for me to present the Lord's Supper this morning. For many, 2022 was quite a tough year. Between the end stages of COVID, large parts of the country that became very dry without rain, then so much rain in some areas that it caused floods, a new high in unemployment rate and load shedding. So many have lost loved ones, and the list could go on and on. As Christians, we must be very careful and prayerful when facing tough times. The problems we face in our lives can easily distract us and take our mind off Christ. We even sing a song, Roll Back the Curtain, of memory now and then. Show me where you brought me from and where I could have been. Remember, I'm human, and humans forget. So remind me, dear Lord. In the book of Matthew, we have recorded for us the institution of the Lord's Supper. And while they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after blessing, he broke it and gave it to his disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And when he had taken the cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Matthew 28, 26 to 28. In 1 Corinthians 11, it says, "Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me." A lot of emphasis is placed on remembrance, as mankind tends to be a forgetful creature. Thus, our Lord saw the need for a memorial of himself, so that man could be kept in constant reminder that his source of help comes only from God. In closing, I'm glad New Year's Day falls on Sunday this year. In my opinion, it's the best way to start the new year. It is... Sorry. What was I saying? I also hope that in this new year that we won't let life's problems or distractions take our mind off Christ or his plan for our lives. Let us ever be mindful of the sacrifice that set us free if we remain in him. Pray with me. Lord, thank you once again for this time that we can set aside to worship you, to sing wonderful songs, and most importantly, to remember the sacrifice that once and for all washed our sins away, that we could be reunited with you once again if we remain faithful. Please help us to clear our minds at this moment and focus solely on you. So I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Dear Lord, as we partake of the fruit of the vine, symbolizing the blood of your Son, you paid the ultimate price for sinners like us. Paid it with the highest price of his precious blood. Lord, we know that only the blood of Christ was pure enough, good enough to take away our sins. And Lord, we are so thankful that we can partake with the blood of your Son. Lord, we are so blessed to know that with his precious blood, our sins have been washed away. And we are under the new covenant of your love and mercy and grace. Lord, we ask that as we partake, that you shall bless each one of us. I see our prayer in Jesus' name.
you have your Bibles with you, turn with me to Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3. Our lesson this morning is entitled An Old Challenge for a New Year. So 2022 is over and 2023 is here. And as we stand at the beginning of a new year, it is a good time to reflect on the year that is ending and on the year that is beginning. It is also a good time to take inventory of our walk with the Lord. We should take a very close look at our relationship and where we are in our relationship with Him. We need to examine ourselves to see where we have been, where we are, and where we are going, where the Lord wants us to be. And this passage gives us the challenge and the opportunity to do just that. Have you ever cleaned out a room in your house? I'm sure we have all rooms that have become cluttered up with a lot of things that are no longer needed. There may be a few things that just needed to be relocated somewhere else. And in the process of cleaning up, you discovered a few things that caused you to walk down memory lane. And in my garage, I have a deck that I built, and I was busy cleaning up there. And you go through all the stuff that is there, and there's a lot of stuff that is thrown away. And you go through the stuff, and you see, I want to keep this. And there are some things, some memorabilia that causes you to look back. That memorabilia happened to be my time in the army. So I saw my beret and the flag badges and so on that I had, and I reflected on my time in the army. So when we clean up, we find that there are things that need to go, and there are things that we need to keep. Things that are retained, things that are released, and things that are remembered. And as we read these 4 verses, we find that they challenge us to do the same thing today. And as we look at our lives in the light of these verses, we are challenged to retain some things. We are challenged to release some things. And we are challenged to remember the rest. Our text, Colossians chapter 3, 1 to 4. And it says, "If then you have been raised with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above, not on the things of the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with Him in glory." So the first thing that we are reminded of are the things that need to be retained. Colossians 3, 1, verses 1, and the first part of verse 2. "If then you have been raised with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above." And as you cleaned that room, and as I cleaned the deck, there were several items that I'm sure that you found that you wanted to keep. There were items that I found that I wanted to keep. Things that you did not throw away because you thought there was a use for them later on. And in a spiritual sense, Paul is telling us that there are a couple of spiritual possessions that we would do well to hang on to. And the first one is an awareness of our foundation. If then you have been raised with Christ, Paul tells us that we are risen with Christ. And the word "if" is not a statement of possibility. It is a declaration of spiritual reality. Paul is saying, in effect, since You have been raised with Christ. So Paul is discussing our spiritual position here. And Paul reminds us in this verse that we have been raised with Christ. When he died, we died. When he rose from the dead, we rose as well. Romans chapter 6 and verse 4. Secondly, we need to pay attention to our focus. Keep seeking the things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above. Since we have been raised to a new life in Christ, we are told to seek the things that are above. The verb seek is in the present tense, in the imperative mode. So, in other words, Paul is telling us to be continually seeking the things that are above. Don't look at it one time and then forget about it. Continually seek the things that are above. Do it on a daily basis. The second verse builds on that thought by telling us to set our affections on the things above and not on the things on the earth. And the word affection refers to the mind. We are to set our minds on the things belonging to God and on the things that bring glory to Him. A quick look at some of the verses following this one in the book of Colossians gives us some insight into what Paul is talking about here. We are to pursue a deeper knowledge of Jesus, verse 10. We are to pursue a clean and holy life, verse 5 through 9. We are to pursue godly virtues, verses 12 through 17. We are to seek holiness in our domestic life, Colossians 3, 18, 21. We are to seek and to pursue holiness in our social life, Colossians 3, 22 to chapter 4 and verse 1. We are to pursue an active prayer life, Colossians 4, 2. We are to be a fruitful witness, Colossians 4, 3 through 6. As we give our attention to spiritual and heavenly things, we are enabled to live a heavenly, holy, God-honoring life on this world, on this earth. From His place at the Father's right hand, Jesus makes intercession for us. And He gives us and enables us to do all the things that we need to live faithfully in this world. Hebrews 7:25 and Romans 8:31 through 34. So as we prepare for a new year, may the Lord help us to realize where we are and also what we have in Jesus. Secondly, there are things that are released. Colossians chapter 3, the second part of verse 2. As you cleaned that room, as I cleaned that deck, there were things that had to go. There were things that you no longer have need for. Things that have been lying in that room and lying on the deck for years. And every time you clean it up, you look at it and you think, oh, can use it some other time, and you put it back. And a time eventually comes when those items, you look at it again and think, this is junk, it has to go. And it goes onto the junk pile. So there are things that need to be retained, and there are things that need to be released. And in our spiritual lives, the same thing is true. Some things have to be let go. There are some things that try to attach themselves to our lives that are just plain trash. Things that we need to kick to the curb and get rid of. Things that don't have a place in our lives. And those things need to go. Paul tells us in verse 2 that we are to focus our minds on heavenly things. if we allowed the mind to focus on this world, it would so fill our minds that we will not have time to think about God and to think on heavenly things. In Colossians, Paul reminds us of some dangerous distractions that would hinder our walk with Jesus if we allowed them to. Let's see some of the things that Paul tells us that we need to avoid. And the first thing is false doctrine. In Colossians chapter 2 and verse 8, Paul warns the early believers about those who would carry them off into false doctrinal beliefs. The word spoil means to carry off the booty, or to carry someone off away to captivity. The enemy would love nothing better than to have God's people get themselves trapped in some false system of belief. And whenever you look around the world at our day and age, you will see it around every single corner. In the week that has gone past, the Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on my door. And I said to them, before you start anything, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And if you can't answer, or if you don't answer properly to those 3 questions, I don't want to hear anything about what you have to say. The first question I asked them is, when was your denomination started? The second question I asked them, who started your denomination? And the third question I asked them is, who is the leader of your denomination? And they said, well, it started this, and this is a leader, and so on. And I said to them, well, then you are not a New Testament church. You are not a church that you find in the New Testament. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. I don't want to hear anything further about you. False doctrines that we find in the world today. Philosophies. Second thing we need to release and let go. And this refers to the wisdom of men. Man has invested and invented some strange beliefs over the years. Just going back to the New Testament, you find Paul, the apostles, fighting against strange doctrines and beliefs that already started in the 1st century. Vain deceit. This refers to empty tricks. Refers to those who would deceive or trick us through a slick message. You get people that are very, very slick with their mouth. They can tell you, they can sell ice to an Eskimo. They are so slick with the mouth that they talk around you in circles. And then at the end of the day, you start believing what they have to say. Traditions of men. Believers are warned to be careful about long-held beliefs. You ask people, why do you go to that denomination? Well, I don't know, but my parents went, my grandparents went, my great-grandparents went. But why do you go? Well, I go because they went. They can't tell you why they go, they just go because everybody else is going there. Just because people have believed something to be true, and they have taught that thing to be true, doesn't mean that it is true. We are to base our worship and our faith and our walk not on the traditions of men, but rather what we find in God's Word. Traditions of men, no matter how godly they may be, we need to kick them to the curb. We are to base our faith solely on what we find in God's Word. The rudiments of the world. Again, believers are warned against falling away from a mature faith and keep holding on to simplistic doctrine. The doctrine, as Robert said previously, is simple enough as it is. People try and make it even simpler than it is. And by doing that, the only way they can make it simpler than what it actually is to leave certain things out. Things that God has given to us that we need to include in that doctrine. Denominations have set aside. And this phrase refers to an alphabet or setting things in a row. When do you learn the alphabet? You learn the alphabet right at the beginning when you start to learn to read and write. Once you have learned to read and write, you no longer need the alphabet because you already know it. It has become a part of you. You know it as you read it, as you speak it, as you write it. We need to leave those things aside in contrast to the deeper truths that we find in God's Word. If you listen to a lot of the high-profile preachers in our day, you hear the very things that Paul warns the Colossians against. We are warned to avoid false doctrine at all costs, no matter in what package it is presented in. We are to leave aside foolish demands, Colossians 2:16 through 17 and 21 through 23. Paul warns the believers as he warned them the whole time to watch out for people who would have them enslaved back under the old law. Jesus came to release us from legalism and from the old law, from the impossible demands that the law placed on people. And yet people, the Judaizers of the New Testament, were dogging Paul at every step, trying to re-enslave people, to keep doctrines that no one had been able to hold. And then finally, fleshly deeds. Paul warns of several common sins of the flesh and admonishes us to eliminate these things from our lives. Let's take a quick look at some of the things that Paul writes and what Paul forbids in Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 through 10. And the first one is fornication. And this is translated from a Greek word referring to any type of sexual expression. Paul is telling us that any sexual activity that takes place outside the confines of marriage is a sin, and we need to put it away from our lives. Uncleanness, this word simply means impurity, and it looks beyond the acts of the body but into the very thoughts of the mind. When Jesus spoke to the people in the book of Matthew, he says, "The law has said, but I say to you, even if you do this, you have already committed sin in your heart, in your mind." Last week, in our lesson for Christmas, the promises or the issues that we saw were all issues of the heart. Not only is the outward man supposed to be clean, but the heart and the mind are also to be clean, Colossians 3:5. Inordinate affection, wicked passions. It has the idea of lust for forbidden things. God has marked out certain things as being off limits. And this kind of lust seeks out these kind of things and it longs for them. Like Eve in the paradise, God said one thing was off limits. And that was the very thing that mankind then lusted for. Evil desires. It speaks of a mind longing for forbidden things. The mind never commits evil on a physical level. But the mind, they live in a fantasy world where all of their wicked thoughts are enacted in their hearts and their minds. You know, the Sodom and Gomorrah and the world was destroyed in the days of Noah for this simple reason. The thoughts, or every thought of man, was continually evil all the time. And then greed. And this is a word to have more. It refers to an insatiable desire that you want more beyond what God has given to you. What God has given you is not enough. You want more and more and more. And we see it so often in the world today. There's these richest men that have billions and billions and billions of dollars. In their lifetimes, they can't even spend it. And what do they do with it? Then we speak of anger. This is a deep, smoldering bitterness. It is an anger that dwells in the heart, and it makes the angry person hard to deal with. And this angry person will tend to lash out in words and in deeds, Colossians 3:8. Wrath refers to a word that means to boil over. It speaks of a sudden, explosive outburst of anger. Malice. This is anger mixed with desire to do harm to the focus of anger. When malice is involved, the angry person lashes and strikes out to do damage to another person. Blaspheme, the word means to slander. Slander directed at other people. Slander directed at God. Slander when we speak and insult other people. This happens when we speak in gossip and we put people down under their backs. Filthy communication. This is abusive speech. It speaks of words that are thrown around in an attempt to hurt or to wound someone. It usually happens when people say things that they should not in a moment of anger. And then finally, lying. And this is the tactic of the devil, John 8:44. These characteristics have no place in a life of a child of God. If any of these things are in our lives, we need to put them away. They will hinder our walk with God and will hinder us and will cripple us spiritually. And the final thing that we need to be are things that must be remembered. Colossians 3 and 4. For you have died and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory. When you cleaned that room, when I cleaned that deck, there are things that caused you to take a trip down memory lane. It is a good opportunity to stop and to think and to remember of the blessings of God. As we stand in the first day of a new year, it is good to look back at the blessings that we have received from God in the year that has gone past. These last two verses remind us of some important spiritual truths today. We need to consider them before we leave these things behind. And the first thing that we need to remember is that there has been a death. We are reminded again that we have died to sin and to the influence of this world. Colossians 3, first part of verse 3. One of the surest ways for us to enjoy spiritual victory is for us to understand that we have been crucified with Christ. The old man has been crucified. The old man has been done away with. The life that we are living now is a new life. And that is a life that we have to live in honor to God. If we can get a grip on that truth, and then if we do what Romans chapter 9, verse 6 and verse 11 tells us to do, then we are to grow deeper in the things of the Lord. We need to remember the second thing, that there has been a deposit. When we were saved, we were given a new life in Christ, Colossians 3, verse 3. We have been given the indwelling of the Holy Spirit as a deposit for the future things that lie ahead. Thirdly, there has been a dream. Paul tells us and closes this paragraph by reminding us that the best in the world is not the best that there is. We may have to deny the flesh down here, but over time it will be worth it. When Jesus comes, our faith in him will be vindicated and we will be glorified with him. Right now, every believer in this room battles the world, the flesh, Satan. every single day of our lives. Each of these enemies does things that can hinder us and cause us to fail. But one day, this battle will be over. We will leave this world with its sin, with its problems, with its devil, and we will go on to the land of perfection and bask in the glory of our Redeemer forever. Revelation 21 verse 4. Right now, we have a dream. One day, that dream will become a reality when we go home. One day, that dream will become a reality when we see Jesus face to face. One day, this dream will become a reality when we will be in His presence forever. That is what we need to remember, to keep on fighting the good fight of faith on this earth. So these things that Paul tells us, that we need to let go, that we need to keep, that we need to remember, it's a lot to take in. But as we stand on the cusp of a new year, we need to take a good, hard look at our lives. We need to examine ourselves and to see where we stand in our walk with the Lord. Are there some things in our life, good things, that we need to be retained? Does our focus need to be adjusted? Are there things in our life that we need to remember? Do we need to take a trip down memory lane to remember the things that of the past and the things that lie before us? Whatever the needs of today, we should listen to the voice of the Lord that is telling us what we need to do. We need to seek to make the best of the year 2023. And as I said in my prayer earlier this morning, my prayer is that for all of us, is that our prayer will be that our walk with Him may grow closer each and every day of this new year that lies before us. So Happy New Year to everybody. As I said previously, I pray it's going to be a good one for each and every one of you. As someone once said, may the best, or maybe the worst of 2020, may the best of 2022 be the worst of 2023.
Where is the sun? I'm singing today. I
to take stock where we are with you, Lord. Lord, it's time to look and take and do introspection into our lives, Lord. Are we still on our way to heaven? Are we still on your side, Lord? And that's the thing that we must take out of the word this morning. How am I running my race towards heaven? And Lord, let us make sure that we have Jesus on our side. Let us make sure that the only way, the only thing why we are here, Lord, because we want to be one day with you, Lord. And Lord, thank you for the wonderful time that we could have around your word, Lord, and again, sit around your table and be encouraged, Lord. It's because of your love. That's why we are here, Lord. You have proven and shown us what love is, Lord. With no condition, you went to the cross and you died there, Lord. And that's why we are here, and we can stand here this morning and call you Father, Lord. Thank you for that all spiritual blessings which there is in Christ Jesus. And help us, Lord, to hold on to this faith which we have, Lord, and that we will never turn our backs on you, Lord. Keep us by your feet, humble all the time, Lord, so that we may reach that which we long for, and that is heaven, Lord. Bless us, Lord, as we separate one from another this morning, that you will never separate from us, Lord, but you will go before us. Keep us safe, Lord, and bring us on the time which we have decided to come together safely again, Lord. We ask it in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.